People now. Is anyone else still coming in? Are we going to begin here? We have Courtney Reardon. She's going to say a few words to us about with her views. I hope you'll give her your rapt attention. And are you ready to go? All right, here you go, Courtney. Can we have a hand of applause for Courtney Reardon?
So good to see everybody here. I'm a child. I became mature in the 60s and 70s, so I was a part of the whole swing. And okay, 60s and 70s, I was there, and I cut my social and political teeth on all of Bob Dylan songs, which I wrote down. I knew every single word of all the old stuff. Still do. Last night I fell asleep on the computer while looking at the movie Inside Job. And I keep thinking about the worldwide movement that happened. I couldn't look this up. We were going to look this up just now, but we don't have internet. The worldwide workers movement was 1910 or 1920. Anybody know? There was a worldwide movement like this one, and that was the last time a worldwide movement.
Stand a little bit that way so you know.
Okay, I think that's the last time that a worldwide movement actually happened. Which is very exciting. And then I was listening to Democracy Now! Yesterday, and they had Naomi Klein, and they had Michael Moore. And Michael Moore said that he was very heartened and very excited about this movement, and he was also very complimentary on the humble roots of it. You know, the kids who were being called dirty hippies. You know, you dirty hippies go get a job and take a bath. You know, I was a hippie before dirty hippie was even a phrase. We weren't dirty. We were philosophers, but we weren't dirty. But anyway, I also cut my social and moral teeth on things like On the Waterfront, you know, movies like that. And I worked for 35, 36 years as a chef, and so I no longer have any knee joints. And we didn't have unions. There was a union, I think, in Florida for restaurant workers and a union in California. But I never had a work week that was less than 70 hours, ever. If it was 60, I felt like I was on vacation. Then when I retired as a chef, I went to work for Whole Foods, and I only had to work 40 hours a week, and I felt guilty walking out the door. I never was paid 1 hour of overtime, ever. They watched how I worked, and they put me on salary right away. And if you didn't do that work, you wouldn't have a job. So I used to call it the last of the coal mines, because people really aren't aware. I was trained by Europeans. They have a very deep respect for that field. Americans don't always have that. They don't think it necessarily requires much intelligence or competence to do that kind of work, but it requires a lot of competence, and meeting really heavy deadlines is very hard, heavy work. I really love the work, but we didn't have the same advantages as people who had a union, you know, where we had proper health insurance and all that. So, you know, I've been a proponent of unions, but I've never been part of one. And to erode that, and I'm sure all of you saw this week, one of the GOPers mentioned that he wanted child labor to come back. Did you guys read that? One of the GOP contenders said that child labor should come back because we have all these kids in the ghetto that can't work and don't have any money. And what they're doing is they're attacking minimum wage because they've done it before. Where they've said, oh, well, you know, if you get a young worker, 14 years old, you don't have to pay the minimum wage. And so entry-level wages go down, so watch out for that one, because that means they're on the attack on that again. And somebody said that a family of 3 can't live on that, a person can't live on it. So, you know, that's an issue that's out there. But, let's see. I forgot my reading glasses. Anybody have an extra pair? Let's see. Okay, so that the worldwide workers movement in 1910, 1920, thank you, that will really help. That was a worldwide movement, as this one is, and that's when labor unions came in. So it was effective. And my history in being an activist is long, you know, at least 30, 40 years, and some of the time I worked for organizations at really, really low pay, in order to go out and do community organizing. So when we talk about where we are, I think we all kind of know where we are. Most of my work was done around the environment. I was up in the Northeast, and I was canvassing in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, all around that area. And we did a door-to-door canvass and we did a phone canvass. I want to suggest that as a way to reach out. Somebody mentioned about the thing of talking one-on-one with people and how important that is. And when you do a door-to-door canvass, I was up in New Hampshire doing that, and you know, you go and you knock on somebody's door and you present yourself and you want to talk about the issues. 90% of the time the people allowed us in their home and we sat down and had a conversation. The rest of the people would kick you off the porch and threaten to call the police, but you have to get, you know, you have to go through the police department and tell them what town you're going to be in. It's a freedom of speech thing, so you can do it. I think that Hawaii, you know, would probably be a fairly gentle place to be able to knock on doors. I don't know how many field canvasses there are here. I haven't been back here for very long, just since May. So, but we would run up against the PERS, which is Ralph Nader's group, that's Public Interest Group, Research Group. I also wanted to say that as an activist, what I realized was that in the environmental movement, we were really concerned that people weren't listening to the message. And we'd go to all these workshops and all this stuff on it. And what they came up with was that we're kind of a world of slow learners. And unless it's eminent, we can't relate to it very well because we're hardwired to do immediate things that are in immediate danger, the flight and fright response. But now, I mean, for the environmental movement, we were disappointed because it was stuff, well, 30 years from now or 40 years from now, and people would glaze over. If you talk to them about the pollution in their backyard during their water, then you could capture their attention. So it's a matter of really getting people where they live to talk to them in order that you get them aware of issues and asking their questions. That's part of the thing of organizing the people so that they will vote for their best interests. They need to have information. So the education is important, and one-on-one, door-to-door, or on the telephone is a really good way to do it. So I wanted to say that as one of the active things that this group perhaps might eventually want to do as a way to reach people. Because we have some elections coming up, and so many people are not voting for their best interests. I also wanted to say that I was in Arizona in the 60s, and we had a John Birch Society bookstore there, and they had a huge poster in the window, and it said that the Beatles were a communist plot to commit menticide. So those are some of the areas I lived in when I was a kid, super conservative. So they really use anything they can on you to make you feel insane or call you a communist or all that stuff they did during the election. They called Obama everything. He went from fascist to, to communist. It was hard to figure out what they were even reading out of what book. So, and also in the 60s and 70s, for us older folks, we know that we were aware of the rip-off of big corporations back then. None of this information is new. We've known it for a very, very long time. And we didn't take action, strong enough action back then, and so we're facing what we are today. And the reason this is such a good time is because it's hit everybody. It's hit the pocketbook. And so that's like flight or fright response. It's like, ooh, my kids, my grandchildren, my house. So it is immediate. Whereas with the environment, we're still saying, well, 50 years from now, people are like, but now, it's hit families on many different levels. The other thing I learned through community activity and organizing was that it requires all levels of groups. Like the people that are sleeping in tents, it's like, no, they aren't being the people who are doing, they're not lobbying, in the State House. And they're doing something that looks a little funky, but it requires all levels. Like Greenpeace would do it one way. They'd go out and chase down whaling ships and make a big boo-rah-rah. And people would be like, well, they're really stupid because they don't really have solutions. But it helped enhance awareness. And that's what the Occupy Wall Street has done, is it's brought it up so that people can look at it and see the images and think about it. And so it's all levels of activism that are required. You've got to lobby, you have to write, your congressmen and senators, you have to go out and educate people. You need to have membership in your groups so that, everybody can kind of share the information. So all those levels of activism are really important. And I was lucky enough to be in New Hampshire working politics, which is a very exciting place to be during elections, when Clinton first got elected. And I organized healthcare debates. And if you remember, all of a sudden healthcare took off like crazy. Nobody had been talking about it before. He started talking about it, and then Hillary went up there, did a really fantastic job of detailing out a whole system, of which the Congress and the Senate just blew her off the stage. But she wanted the single-payer system as well. And of course, the money out of politics is the core. I worked for Citizen Action up there. Citizen Action had been working on getting the money out of politics on the single-payer healthcare system for over 30 years as a grassroots organization. So there's been people working on this a long time, and like Michael Moore said, he said all of this activity stands on the shoulders of activities that have happened over many years. And so that's kind of all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much. Oh, that's louder. Okay. Oh, one more thing. Okay.
Give him applause. For him badgering, I mean encouraging all the people who live on his property to paint signs.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Courtney. For my, you're exposing my my labor system. Okay. I'm going to just say this because I know we're starting to run on a bit, and many of us probably 4 or 5 hours is enough, I think, for our first meeting. So I'm going to ask, and it's not really fair because we've given everybody as much time as possible, but I want to ask that you guys keep it to like 2 minutes apiece. All right, great. I think we got a 30-second. And this is a little louder, so be careful if you hear it.
Aloha. I just wanted to mention there's some calabashes in the back to help pay for the hall and pay for some of the food and water and stuff. So please be generous. It helps pay for the paint for the signs and the food and the rent. So please help out there if you can. Also, I wanted to say thank you to Bida right here, that lady in the black shirt. She helped put all this together, and her husband John, and Herman Lang, and Sandra Scar. These are the people that kept this going for the last 2 months, and I really appreciate it. And also, come out Monday in front of the Mormon Temple, 3 o'clock.
Giving us Monday off. The boss is making us come in on Monday.
Right. Really, it is about us growing as fast as possible. Thank you, Shannon. Our next speaker is Josephine. Josephine, what's your last name?
My name is Josephine Kili'ipio. Aloha, and I'll be really short, but I just wanted to say thank you to everybody that got up here to speak on their issues, and I'm actually quite grateful for the Occupy Wall Street movement for recognizing that the people that came out for the movement came out because they were frustrated about their own issues, and that the unity of the whole group is because people are coming out for their own issues. And so that's the same thing I'm doing. I'm waving on the side of the street, and my issue is very unpopular, and but it's my way of educating. So even though the group will probably not take it up, I'm still going to stay out on the street and educate everyone on it, because I feel that we need to know that 911 was an inside job.
No, we agree.
And there are at least almost about 2,000 engineers and architects, building experts that have come forward to talk about. They know that there's no way that huge 100+ story buildings, they're the size of an acre. Each story was the size of an acre. They know that an airline could not have brought it down. It was built to withstand airline impact. And so they know that maybe the airline might have collided with it, but that was not what brought it down. It was someone did wire the buildings with explosives, or there were explosives involved. So that's my thing right now. I have other issues, but this is what I stand outside on the road with on Mondays, is my way of educating people that we need another investigation. We need another investigation. And just one last thing. When Mazie Hirono came here for a coffee hour about a couple months ago, and I showed up. It was just a small group of 20 of us that showed up, and as soon as the staffer, you know, she was curious as to what question I had, and as soon as I brought up 9/11, her eyes came really big, like she saw a ghost, and she immediately told me we were attacked. And I said, I know. I said, you folks formulated that within 3 days without a formal investigation. Within 3 days you were telling us who attacked. There was no investigation, and the investigation that was done a year later was to back them up, back up their story. That, Obama, Bin Laden attacked and all of that. The story, we need a new investigation, and so that's why I'm out there on the road. Thank you.